Good morning. Hi. How are you? Good morning. How are you all? Good morning. Welcome to National Reconciliation Breakfast with Reconciliation New South Wales. We're so excited to have those of you joining us in person, as well as nearly 100 local 100 organisations, local councils, schools, and our local reconciliation groups. They're joining us virtually from across our state. They're hosting their own events. And so we really are very grateful that we've got so many people who are tuned in today. So my name is Annie Tennant, and I'm the non-Indigenous co-chair of Reconciliation New South Wales. A deep and sincere thank you to Gilbert and Tobin for being our National Reconciliation Week breakfast host firm for 2024 and for partnering with us to deliver what will be a fantastic event. I'd also like to acknowledge so many esteemed guests in the room. I'm not going to name you all, otherwise it'll take up the whole speech, but thank you so much for joining us, particularly Minister Harris. So this morning we are gathered here on Gadi country, a beautiful place to live, to work, and to get to join and talk about National Reconciliation Week 2024 and to reflect on this year's theme, now more than ever. I would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, in particular elders, past and present, of the Gadi, the first and traditional custodians of this land on which we currently stand, and I acknowledge that this land was never ceded. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Reconciliation New South Wales is the peak body for advancing reconciliation in New South Wales. We do this through our programs in communities, schools, organisations and governments, by amplifying Aboriginal voices, education campaigns and calls for justice and equity, and by supporting our allies to advance reconciliation throughout our community. We are so proud to represent New South Wales as part of the Australian Reconciliation Network that brings together 6 independent state reconciliation organisations together with Reconciliation Australia. And we are so honoured to work with this incredible group of committed advocates towards a more just and equitable Australia. The network has been really overwhelmed recently by growth, by engagement, by passionate allies wanting to join us. And so it's great to see the involvement of so many organisations and institutions, some of whom are with us today, as well as some of our local reconciliations groups who are here via live stream. So don't think that you can hide at your tables. We're actually all live streamed, so they will hear you. For our new members, we hope that this is the beginning of a wonderful partnership with Reconciliation New South Wales. And we look forward to walking alongside you on this journey, your personal journey of reconciliation. So please enjoy today's event. Now, have you all got one of these on your tables? And those of you at home in cafes or in your offices, you should have one of these. They will have been given to you in your digital kit. So if you haven't already and you don't have a copy, please print it out. Use it for setting your actions and holding yourselves accountable this year. So during today's event, please reflect on what you're hearing. Please think about it and please write down 4 things you will do over the next year to take action to advance reconciliation, thinking about now more than ever. Pin this card to your desk, to your kitchen, to your fridge, wherever's easy, wherever you're going to see it, maybe your kitchen, your bathroom cabinet mirror, to hold yourself accountable. And please take opportunities to reflect on your progress with your colleagues and with your friends and your family members. So please reach out to any of us at Reconciliation New South Wales for help. We're here to help you. We're here to talk to you, just to help you along this journey to keep and maintain this momentum. So not just this week, not just during NAIDOC week, but all year long. Now, we will be having a welcome to country. Rowena Welsh-Jarrett will be joining us. She's stuck in traffic, unfortunately. So we're going to hear a few words from our host firm, Gilbert and Tobin, and then followed by Karen Mundine, our CEO of Reconciliation Australia. So please welcome Sam from Gilbert and Tobin.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And let me add my acknowledgement that we're meeting on Gadigal lands and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome very warmly to G&T. To all of our colleagues from the legal industry. It's great to have you here and to everyone on the live stream. My name's Sam Nicholas. I'm the CEO and a partner here at Gilbert and Tobin. We're joined here by our chairman, Danny Gilbert, and our founder, our executive partner, Tim Gordon, and members of our staff, Nathan, Eloise, and Carla, and Kimberly. And we're very proud to have Reconciliation New South Wales and all of you here today. So thank you very much for coming. The theme of now more than ever really strikes home to us in our organisation, where reconciliation is very important, as I'm sure it is in yours. With the events of the last year, it really is now more than ever so important that the reconciliation efforts that we are all making inside our organisations, inside our companies and our firms are so much more important. And now more than ever, we need to double down on those and really commit to our own reconciliation actions, which I'm sure we're all doing in our organisations. And hopefully we can write down on our card. I'm sure last year, if we came to the breakfast, we know some of the things we would have written on that card and we didn't get to do. And now we'll put some new things on our card this year, and we look forward to talking about those and doing them over the next year. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoy the breakfast. If there's anything that you need or anything that's missing, let us know and we'll make sure that you're looked after. And have a great breakfast. And thank you very much to everyone who's come in on the live stream as well. My great pleasure now to hand over to the CEO of Reconciliation Australia, Karen Mundine, who'll take us through the next part. Thanks, Karen.
Good morning. Welcome. Happy National Reconciliation Week. As has been said, I am Karen Mundine. I'm a Bundjalung woman from the Northern Rivers of New South Wales and with a day job as being the CEO of Reconciliation Australia. It is wonderful to be in this room here on Gadigal country. Gadigal country, of course, was ground zero for colonisation, and in every moment since, Gadigal elders have been fighting for rights, for justice, and for inclusion. And I want to acknowledge the Gadigal elders of today and of yesterday. And when Rowena gets here, I know we will have a warm and welcoming welcome to country. I also want to acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, both in the room, but also joining us on the live stream. This is a busy time of year for many of us, and I really just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your service of reconciliation. It's not always easy. It comes at a cost and with a load, but I know we do this work because you think it's important, the same way I think it's important. Congratulations also to our colleagues of Reconciliation New South Wales. I get to come to a few of these breakfasts, and this is a fun one, I have to say. And particularly thank you to Gilbert Tobin for hosting us today. Now, reconciliation is everyone's business, every day of the year, every day of the week. But from the 27th of May to the 3rd of June, it really is an opportunity for all of us to reinvigorate our commitment and to make our mission known and heard far and wide. Now, I know I say this every year, it's kind of part of the job title, but this year feels different. Because at the heart of reconciliation is the relationship between Australians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And it's no surprise, and I think it's fair to say, that last year that relationship was damaged and trust has been chipped away at. Which is why our theme for this year's National Reconciliation Week is simply now more than ever. Because now more than ever, we need justice. Now more than ever, we need equity. And now more than ever, we need reconciliation and a reconciled Australia. Now, bubbling under the bedrock of Australian society, there has always been a deep-seated misconceptions about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Misconceptions that inflict and perpetuate harm. These misconceptions, fed by 230 plus years of harmful policies and practices, erupted during the referendum campaign. During this period, the First Nations mental health provider 13Yarn experienced a 108% increase in callers reporting abuse, racism, and trauma. Now that the referendum is over, we're left with the ignorance and misunderstanding and the lingering stench of racism from those who are being emboldened by the tenor of the debate. As a direct result, we know that these misconceptions are a direct result of the lack of knowledge and understanding about our history and about the ongoing impacts of colonialism. And we also know that it will remain until truth-telling, education, and our collective efforts cleave it out. Which is why now, more than ever, we need you on this journey. The fight for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander rights, recognition, and justice must continue. Now, I look forward to hearing a bit more from the Minister, but here in New South Wales, the government has committed, excuse me, to a 12-month consultation process with Aboriginal communities on our aspirations for treaty framework and for other formal agreement-making processes. There are other states who are also developing their own approaches to the aspirations of voice, treaty, truth, laid out in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. All of these things, hard-won progress, which now faces opposition, where previously there was consensus. But the referendum has been instructive. Systemic change cannot succeed without efforts to confront the false deficit narratives that derail our rights and our progress. We have to bring everyday Australians on this journey with us and demonstrate that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people governing our own lives is a better future for all Australians. Now, some of you might be thinking this is a bit of a big ask, but I can stand here saying that the reconciliation movement has been meeting Australians where they are for 30 years. We know what works. Relationships work. Education works. Exposure to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, stories, histories, and success works. 6.2 million Australians got it. So if you're sitting here wondering what your role is in all of this, National Reconciliation Week is the perfect time to commit to an act and to your principles. So can I leave you with a challenge that you might want to fill out in your cards? First, stay engaged. Pay attention to what's happening around us in your communities, in your workplaces, schools and local government, state government. Be vigilant against efforts to roll back gains. Take a stand. Take action and call out racism, because racism is about power and inequity, and it's not enough to be not racist. We all have to be actively anti-racist. And thirdly, listen up, show up, and stay hopeful. Listening to the voices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices is crucial for progress, so please continue to support and amplify our voices. This National Reconciliation Week, reflect on how you can contribute to making this nation a better place for all, where you live, where you work, and where you play. Our website, reconciliation.org.au, has lots of resources to help you, as do our colleagues in Reconciliation New South Wales. Now, I don't want to leave on a downer because there is much to celebrate as we think about how we move forward as a nation. And this year, we once again invited Australians to join us in song. And this year's song we used is the Warami Band's reconciliation anthem, Black Fella, White Fella, inspired by the musical which was premiered here in New South Wales at the beginning of January. The song asks, are you the one who's going to stand up and be counted? And the refrain keeps saying, stand up and be counted. This song and our theme are clarion calls to all of you now that it's not the time to disengage and disconnect. Stand up and be counted, because we need reconciliation now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate your leadership and advocacy in this space. We know that it's a it's been a really tough time, and we just feel so fortunate to walk alongside you in this journey together. And really, it's beholden on everyone on this room to keep going, keep fighting, keep working together, because now more than ever, it's important. So we work so closely with your colleagues on so many programs together on the national efforts to advance reconciliation. A particular favourite of ours is our Narragunawali program in education. So we're going to keep going, but please, we need all of your support. Please thank Karen once again. We are going to, before Rowena joins us, and then followed by our minister, we're going to play you a very quick video. Thank you.
Reconciliation New South Wales has been supporting, inspiring and engaging the people of New South Wales for over 25 years. We are friends, colleagues and allies of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We amplify the voices of First Nations peoples through advocacy and engagement. We promote reconciliation in education through our Schools Reconciliation Challenge and by supporting teachers to educate the leaders of tomorrow. We host events so all communities know our true shared history and can proudly celebrate blackfellas cultures as part of our national identity. Together, we advocate for a whole-of-government commitment to reconciliation in New South Wales. Join us as an individual or organisational member at an event near you, or follow us on social media. Get involved in an existing local reconciliation group or start one of your own. Reconciliation benefits all Australians. It's everyone's responsibility.
It's with great pleasure that I now welcome the Honourable David Harris, New South Wales Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and Treaty, for Gaming and Racing, for Veterans, for Medical Research and the Central Coast. Please come and share us your words of wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Annie. And I too acknowledge that we gather today on Gadigal country and pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and acknowledge the ongoing responsibility we have as a nation to work with First Nations people to improve outcomes through not just closing the gap, but through the way that we treat each other. I'll go a little bit off script because I've been down a little bit unwell for the last week and been reflecting on and having some time to look through the media. Sometimes not a very healthy pursuit. But this year's theme, now more than ever, and I think Karen summed it up in her speech, is how important it is after last year that we refocus our determination and above all, we show courage. Courage and empathy to the plight that Aboriginal people have been subjected to over 230 years and continue to be subjected to. And it's disheartening, but it also renews your strength of purpose to see when we've got National Sorry Day, a day where we're asked to reflect on those people who were taken forcibly from their families, dislocated, and put into institutions to assimilate them, to take away their Aboriginal identity, where their names were taken from them and they were given numbers. And on that day where it should be a day of reflection, the mainstream media ran a story about a person who went on TikTok and spoke about how outrageous it was that his daughter was made to apologise. Totally misunderstanding the concept, totally not understanding the broader empathy that we would want to have in our children, to understand that to be part of a society, we have to acknowledge the good things, but also the bad things. And through that, we become a better society. It was interesting that the mainstream media didn't reflect on some of that person's other posts on TikTok, where his anti-women comments about them going back to the kitchen, he thought was important, and a whole lot of other things he had reflected on, which meant his credibility was zero. But they just picked up on that one story, and I think it was on 2GB, they actually ran a bit of a poll about whether he's right or not, and it just invited people to come in with their vile opinions and misunderstandings and share that. And if that wasn't bad enough, we're now in National Reconciliation Week, a time where as a nation, we can actually show unity and support. And what's the story in the mainstream media? That someone had the audacity to do acknowledgement of country in a job interview. Where are the stories about positive Aboriginal people? And there's so many across our community. Where are the stories that talk about success? Where are the stories that celebrate Aboriginal culture? There are none. And that's a great shame. It's a great shame. And it's up to the good people in this country to stand up and say that's not right, that's wrong. And we have to do that with conviction. Now, I've got a whole lot of things in my speech, positive things that we're doing, but the good side of reconciliation, and to show there is good people out there who understand that reconciliation's not about being divisive, as some people would claim. It's actually about unifying, and it's about a shared history. And that Aboriginal people, and you hear that when they do their acknowledgement of country, they acknowledge that we have a shared history and they want to share their culture. They want to share it with us. And it's such a welcoming, positive message that is given out that is then rejected by these right-wing conservative people who want to dismiss everything that's happened and pretend in a way that that talking about these issues is bad. It's bad for the country, and it just isn't. So some positive stories. So on the weekend, I went to two events. One, which probably didn't help my voice much, was the Central Coast Mariners Grand Final victory. And being from the Central Coast and Minister for the Central Coast, I will be talking about this for the next 12 months, so I apologise for that. But it's back to back, and we've done it 2 years in a row, and we're heading for 3. But anyway, but Tina West, who is the chair of Dark and Young Aboriginal Land Council, stood out there and did the acknowledgement of country. And I was looking around, and I was actually a bit concerned what the reception might be like, because I know that at some sporting events, some people have booed, which is just outrages me, and I just can't understand that why you would want to be like that. But her acknowledgement of country was very warmly welcomed, and people gave genuine applause and support. And so that shows that there is that positivity out there. And then on Sunday, I went to the Central Coast Air Show, and there was a young girl, Trinity, a young Aboriginal woman from the entrance, and she did acknowledgement of country. I got to meet her afterwards. She's doing her pilot's license, and she's just been accepted into a program from Qantas. And I thought, yeah, this is good. This is good news. Why isn't that in the newspaper? Why isn't that broadly celebrated? And I did put it on my social media, and at the start of the air show, they had a skydiver who had the Australian flag and the Aboriginal flag, and a stunt plane went round and round as they came towards the ground, and the crowd, cheered and thought this was a great thing. I had one comment on social media that was, "We've only got one flag," but it just goes to show that theme now more than ever is so important. That after last year, we have to pick ourselves up and move forward. And that's why, as a government, we're really pleased to be pushing forward with the conversation around treaty and agreement making. We think it's a really important conversation to have, and it will cop criticism. We've already got people out there saying it's a talk fest and all of these sorts of things, but we're really committed, and Shane Hamilton from the department and his team have worked really hard to make sure that this is a process that will be a genuine consultation. So we go into it with no preconceived ideas. We actually want to hear from Aboriginal communities what they want. And the two questions they'll be asked is, do you want treaty making? And if you do, what does it look like? And that if it comes back with a positive message, then it's actually then designed by Aboriginal people, not government designing a process and putting it out there and saying this will be the process. And that's a really hard thing, because people say, oh, but what's it going to look like? And we say, well, we can't tell you what it's going to look like because we haven't consulted with people yet. And they get a bit confused by that. And they, oh, you must have some idea. And you say, well, if it's a genuine consultation, then you've got to wait and hear what people say. And so we're going through that process now. We've got a panel. Applications have closed for the 3 treaty commissioners who will undertake that consultation. There'll be a selection process, and then they'll undertake that journey over 12 months talking to community. But what we have to do, all of us, and those people online as well, is talk about this positively and say that a treaty process or agreement-making process is not new. In fact, it's been going on for 230 years. The difference has been that governments have always had the power, and when they didn't like what the agreement was, they just got rid of it. They said, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. And so what we want to do is put in place a process where if an agreement is made, then it's legally binding and it has to be followed through. It can be changed if both parties come back to the table and say this isn't working and we need to do it differently, but it can't be rejected out of hand. That's what the process that we would like to see in place. It needs to be a process where parties come to the table as equals, because government always has the power in the past. And we want to make sure that we have a process where both parties come to the table equally and have a proper negotiation. It doesn't mean that it'll be all happy endings, because the nature of life is that there will always be disagreement. But the idea is that there will be a pathway to actually negotiate a whole range of things. And in closing the gap, it clearly says in priority reform number 1 that governments have to change the way they do business. And the way they do that is, and it talks about true partnership. And you have to think about what is true partnership. And true partnership is about equality. It's about people being equal in a discussion. And that's what our process is about. Our process is about making sure that when we do negotiate things, and it happens all the time, as I said, that there's actually an equal outcome. And I'm reminded of Uncle BJ Cruz down in Eden, sort of opened my eyes to this because the Eden Aboriginal Land Council negotiated a forest agreement down there. This was many years ago. And when I met with him a few years ago, and he said, I was then the opposition spokesman for Aboriginal Affairs, and he said to me, Minister, and I said, I'm not Minister yet, but maybe he was talking the future, I don't know. But he said, we made this agreement in good faith. He said, we didn't ask for money. He said, we didn't ask for anything other than access to land for cultural purposes and for tourism. I said, that's fair enough. And I said, so what's happened from it? He said, nothing. It was never honoured. So they sat down, they went through a process, they signed an agreement, and then nothing. And we can't keep doing that. That's the wrong way of doing business. We have to have a system that says if you sit down and you put Aboriginal people through a process and they sign an agreement, then that agreement is binding. And that what you say you're going to do is what you do. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a very strange concept, but Aboriginal people have lost confidence in the system because they are constantly betrayed. They sit down in good faith and they go through all these negotiations and the nice words and the signing ceremonies and the photos and all that sort of thing that politicians love. But at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, they're let down. And that's just not good enough. We can't keep doing business that way. And that's what this process will hope to achieve. Now, it's going to be difficult because we've seen in Victoria and in Queensland where oppositions, and even at the federal level, where oppositions or governments have committed to a process who have now, for political reasons, changed direction. And they're now opposing that process. And that's a real shame because it needs bipartisan support. And I was hopeful that we would get bipartisan support in New South Wales. And I was happy to hear from the New South Wales opposition, Mark Speaksman, who's a good guy, say that they would actually wait to see the outcome of the consultation before making a judgment about what they would do. So that's at least a step to say, well, we'll listen to what people say and see what's going to happen. But I hope that we do get that bipartisan approach because we negotiate all the time. I think at one stage, and you'll probably say I'm way off the beam, but in New South Wales at the moment, there's probably about 50 or 60 different issues that are being negotiated, from land claims to service agreements, to water rights, fishing, a whole range of things. And every one of those negotiations is different. And that means that every time Aboriginal community comes to the table, there's a new set of rules. There's a new set of understandings that they have to get their head around before they can even start negotiating. And it may be the same people who are negotiating on one thing and negotiating on the next thing, and it's changed just because the people sitting around the table are different. And so having a process where the rules are sort of the same all the time actually is part of creating that equality and making sure that it is a proper equal negotiation. So that's one of the things that we're doing. As I said, it will attract attention for the wrong reasons. The media will be looking for people to, who make comments about certain things to blow it up and say, oh, this is divisive, this is the end of the world that we know it. But in New South Wales, and this is a positive story, although I don't call it a success story per se, we've had Aboriginal land rights now for 40 years, which was set up as a form of reparation. There's acknowledgement it never went. The bill that actually went to Parliament wasn't what was promised, and there's an acknowledgement of that because it only ended up being about land and not about water and a whole range of other things. So we can go back in history and talk about that. But for 40 years, we've had a process. Has it been 100% successful? No. There's 38,000 unresolved land claims in the system. It's a system that is bogged down in bureaucracy and research and a whole range of things. And there's no one reason why it hasn't worked probably how it should have. However, it has returned a lot of land back to Aboriginal communities. And part of this new process or the new way of doing business is actually moving from that step of returning land to community and actually assisting them to actually do something with that land that actually benefits their community. Now, that could be economic, it can be cultural, it can be environmental, it can be all three things. But at the moment, what we have is a system that gives community back land that then becomes a liability, because when they get that land back, they get a liability of, they've got to do fire control, pest control, all of those things becomes a cost. And so we have to, through this process, make sure that they can actually realise the value of that land for whatever purpose their community thinks. I can talk about these things for hours and hours and hours, and I'm pretty passionate about it, and I know my cabinet colleagues are pretty passionate about it too, but there's other speakers and a panel this morning. Sorry, I didn't actually read the speech that I had, but I think it's really important for that theme now more than ever. We double down and we get on and we make sure that we are an equal country, that this is a process that unifies us, not divides us, and that hopefully Reconciliation Week and all year round in the future is we see positive story after positive story of Aboriginal people achieving and doing well, because there are so many success stories out there and we should be celebrating that, not the way that the media currently does it. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Harris, for joining us today and showing us your true passion for and commitment to a positive path forward, but also for being so upfront about the challenges that face us. I think that we can't shy away from these challenges, and it's only in working together and supporting each other and speaking to and illuminating the positive stories out there that we can really start to see greater equity. Thank you also for illustrating to us a positive pathway to treaty. And also for your ongoing commitment to reconciliation and to closing the gap. So thank you again for joining us today. I would now like to introduce Rowena Welch-Jarrett, my friend, my sis, coming up here. She's worried about being late. Please don't be worried about being late. You're stuck in traffic. So please put your hands together for Rowena.
Thank you, Annie, for that beautiful introduction. And also thank you to Minister Harris. I do get to sit at the table with you in my role as an ACHAC committee member. And it is great to hear you reiterate your commitment to Aboriginal people and our rights. So Ngambri, everyone, as I was introduced, my name is Rowena Welch-Jarrett and I'm conducting the Welcome to Country for you all today. Unfortunately, we're a bit late because the traffic in Sydney didn't realise it's Reconciliation Week. I always begin this cultural process by acknowledging our elders past, our elders present, my elders who came before me, the elders who role modelled self-determination, cultural strength and pride. I acknowledge our ancestors and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present here today. Especially my countrymen at the front there. We've got some Gumbaynggirr mob in the crowd. Lovely to see you. I'm a proud Dharawal Gumbaynggirr woman and I was born on Gadigal land. I'm a descendant of multiple coastal Sydney clan groups and my maternal grandmother is a Timbri. Like many other coastal Sydney families, I come from an unbroken line of Koris born here in Sydney, pre-Cook. Traditionally, my people moved about following fishing seasons in this very harbour and its surrounding rivers. We travelled as far south as the Shoalhaven, never taking more than we needed from our lands and our waterways. Our cultural, environmental knowledge and innovation has shaped and informed many primary industries here in this city. And my people still proudly live on country, out at La Perouse, in Redfern and surrounding areas. We continue to work in various sectors and roles, caring for our traditional lands and waterways. We proactively participate in our local Aboriginal governance and proudly continue to practice our culture. We draw on our cultural knowledge to enhance outcomes for our country, waterways, communities, and future generations. Much like today, traditionally many nations gathered around the Sydney area, the coastal Sydney area, because of its great cultural significance and its abundance of natural resources. Also to ensure that our cultural knowledge and practices and laws were passed on. Often moving around amongst our coastal Sydney area and surrounding areas, we would follow customs such as being welcomed onto country by neighbouring nations or nations whose country we would pass through for reasons such as ceremony, marriage, trade, burial, and celebration. This traditional custom was carried out to acknowledge ancestors, people of the land past and present, acknowledge their customs and their laws, and to respectfully adhere to those customs and laws whilst on country. In turn, this ensured your safe passage through country. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you all for participating in the continuation of our culture, the oldest living culture in the world, and the culture of these lands. in the spirit of truth-telling, moving forward, and reconciliation. So it is with these experiences, the knowledge passed down to me, the bloodlines within me, that I welcome you to this country. Gadigal Gully, my ancestral country of coastal Sydney. This land is, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. We will always have a cultural responsibility to this land and to each other, as it is country, all-encompassing, that sustains us. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Rowie. So now to the panel. It is my great pleasure to introduce our Reconciliation New South Wales board member and today's panel facilitator, Joshua Staines. Josh is a proud Wiradjuri father living on Darkinjung country on the Central Coast. And as well as being one of our board members, a deadly dude, he is also a senior policy officer in local government and a director at Black Duck Foods. Josh has spent the best part of a decade working in local government developing policy, implementing strategic projects, and he invests a huge amount of time mentoring Aboriginal young people, as well as facilitating opportunity for on-country experiences, supporting elders in land management practices, bush regeneration projects, and is a very strong advocate for shared decision-making. We are so glad to have you here. Please give Josh a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, good. Reconciliation Week, it's interesting. And I think we all know in this room and people dialing in, it's the work of reconciliation isn't exclusive to this week. It's something that happens every day that we need to work at, we need to be cognizant of and need to maintain. It's not something that you achieve and then you put it in the back or you write the policy and the strategy and it sits in the top drawer. It's an active, continuous, ongoing conversation and practice. And that being said, I thought, interesting. I'm on a stage, I've got some chairs. I sat down in the chair and I didn't break the chair, it's a plus. So I thought, how can I use this stage, these chairs and this platform to put in front of all of you, people at the coalface, people that do this work every day, people that live and breathe it, people that are known by our community, people that are sought out by our community to lead, participate, and engage others to be in this space. So that being said, I've got a really deadly fellow who's just about to join me up on stage. I have been playing around with him throughout the week, trying to get him a bit nervous so that I'm not the most nervous person on the panel. This fella is a countryman of mine, so he comes from the best place on the planet as far as everyone should be concerned. And he holds the try-scoring record, I believe, for a St. Mary's Football Club. All around good bloke champion, Mitchell Beggs Mausen. Please give him a warm welcome. He comes next to me.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah. So, brother, you've got the minty fresh breath.
Yep, ready to go.
Cool cut. Looking flash.
Fresh yesterday, and I'll have you know that it wasn't St. Mary's, actually Sinclair try-scoring record. So
yeah,
you were close.
Well, the only reason you hold it is because Brendan and I weren't playing against you or in the same comp. Brother, tell us a bit about yourself. Who's your mob? Where you're from? What's your work about?
Yeah, sure. So before I do begin, I'd just like to acknowledge also the people of the Gadigal Nation and thanks, Sis, for the awesome welcome to country this morning. I'm lucky enough to be here with my wife and we got the opportunity last night to venture around this beautiful country and saltwater country and to have a look at some of the lights in Vivid. And one of the things that really stood out for me was just how much of our culture was illuminated up on some of the buildings. So you know, it's a bit of an excursion for us to come out here from freshwater country. I was born and bred on Durrig country, but mob's originally from out west, so Wiradjuri country. My family are Lords and Naidens. Great-grandfather was born a Naiden. Grandmother was a Lord. And my last name, one's from my white grandfather and one's from my Ukrainian stepfather, so hence the last name. So, but yeah, so got a... long line of mob, all sorts of mobs right across the country. So, but yeah, brother. So I work at the Nepean Blue Mountains Primary Health Network. I'm the Aboriginal Liaison Officer, and I've been lucky enough to work in Aboriginal health for the past 13 years. So a long time, focusing on the Closing the Gap program, but also another program called the Integrated Team Care program. So really working with mob in our community with chronic disease, in particular 5 chronic diseases: so diabetes, cancer, respiratory, renal and cardiovascular disease. So the 5 main chronic diseases that do affect our mob. So I've been very lucky to start there when I was very young. As you can tell, I'm not the oldest fella going around, but and being fortunate enough to work with a lot of mob right across the state. So some of the work that we do with the Integrated Team Care, we've actually got a bucket of money there where we can pay for appointments for mob, so medical appointments with specialist appointments, medical equipment, transport. So really trying to knock down some of them barriers for mob in accessing healthcare.
Those barriers are huge, bruh. We've worked together on NAIDOC,
absolutely,
out in Western Sydney, and we put on a health tent. Well, Mitch's working with Director of Aboriginal Health out that way, Rachel Scobie, put on a health tent and provided an opportunity for mob to get 715 health checks.
Yeah,
and 500 people got 715 health checks, and you think about, if that wasn't there, if that work that you had done, going out into community, making that service available in an environment that it wouldn't have otherwise been,
100%.
That's 500 people that might not have got a 715 health check, 500 people that might not have known that they're at risk. Few people had to be referred to hospital. There's a lot of barriers in community, and he's a pretty modest fella. He's also on the committee of the Nepean Aboriginal Men's Group. He's been leading the way with sector development out in Western Sydney for a long time, with the Nepean Blue Mountain Aboriginal Network as the chair. So he's a very, very modest fella, if you haven't noticed. And he's very busy. So, it's great to hear that you were able to actually do something nice with your partner.
Thank you.
Stop working. I might introduce the next panel member, Belinda Huntress. And before you get up, Bez and I go way back, actually. So I remember being a pretty grumpy teenager, probably around 13, 14 years old, and started going to a youth program here in Sydney. And a lot of us from school, we would go to the youth program at NCIE, so National Centre of Indigenous Excellence, and be like, can't wait to play on that new $10 million multi-court. And the purpose of the program, of course, was to make sure we did our homework. We ate some healthy food. So I turned up there pretty hopeful, and I met Bez for the first time. He said, "Where's your homework, Russ?" And I think if it wasn't for Bez and people like Bez in my life at that age, I probably would have gone down a pretty different path. So without further ado, Bezzy, come join me up on the stage.
Oh, now you're going to make me cry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joshy. Thanks for having me, and what an introduction. I think like that statement in itself, like, because, my partner always says to me, you're so obsessed with Aboriginal education. I'm like, this is like, it's a calling. And when you hear something like that, it makes it all worthwhile what you're doing. Yeah. So thanks, Joshy. Lovely to see you, and the wonderful young man you've turned into. Oh, it sounds so old now.
I'm definitely not a skinny young fella anymore, I tell you that. I wish I took the healthy eating habit outcomes of that program with me through the next 10 years.
We tried.
Yeah. Bez, tell us a little bit about yourself, your work. Who's your mob? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm from Warami country. So I grew up in Gloucester, which is the foothills of the Barrington Tops. My mum's Aboriginal from Warami country. My dad's family are First Fleeters from England and Ireland. Yeah, I grew up in the bush my whole life. This is actually, confession, this is the first time I've ever worn a suit.
Rocking the suit.
It was my son's birthday yesterday. So we come down to, I live on the Central Coast now, but we come down to Sydney last night to make it a little birthday thing. And they woke up this morning. I didn't want to bring him here. They're too hectic. But I said, my son woke up and he said, "Mum, you look like a real estate agent." I said, "I know." I feel very fancy today. So thanks, Kmart suit. But yeah, so I guess I've been working in Aboriginal education for about 15 years. another self-confessed workaholic. I have 4 jobs, but they're all focused around education, so it's kind of all related. I currently work as an Aboriginal education teacher at a little Catholic school in Newcastle called Our Lady of Lourdes at Taro, which I absolutely love, and it's the best little school. I also work for the University of Newcastle, where I'm teaching Aboriginal health, and it's around cultural safety. And then I have recently come on board with the largest online education resource website called Twinkle, and they develop teaching resources. If your children have brought home homework or anything like that, you would have seen that a lot of it's Twinkle. In the past, they had not done a very good job of following any cultural protocols in terms of embedding Aboriginal perspectives into any of their stuff. And they're very transparent about that, and for me to be able to say that. And so I'm kind of assisting them to develop culturally appropriate resources. And finally, our little family has created a consultancy service called Freshwater Education, even though really my partner's saltwater, but I don't know, I got the name, I guess. But so I guess I'm early childhood and primary school trained, but the work that I see as most vital at this point is the work in early childhood. And historically, and as you know, your sister Jess is really instrumental in this space as well at the core curriculum. But I think I'm really passionate about empowering educators to build their cultural understanding, because I just don't think it's been done very well historically. So our consultancy does professional development, cultural incursions, mentoring, and we have an online shop also that does sustainable teaching resources. So yeah, I don't know, pretty busy.
Legend. So everyone pull out your phones now, get out your handles. What is it? Freshwater Education Consultancy?
Just Freshwater Education, yeah. We're just on Facebook. We're just started out. So
get the follows up.
Appreciate any follows, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, this fella, I was out with him on country yesterday, actually. We've been spending quite a bit of time out on country together. And I had my 4-year-old with me, and we're up on the rise in this beautiful place, still in Sydney, but you wouldn't think it. Not a building in sight. Couldn't hear the hum of a car, and just thinking this is what our old people were doing for 60,000 years, and here we are having the opportunity to do it now. And I had my 4-year-old there with me, doing cultural burn, and he's participating. He's got his leaves, and he's helping me pad out some fire. And I was just thinking, this is what it's about. This is why we're here. We're here to look after mother, look after country. And really connected with this fella and his family. Our siblings grew up together, went to school together. And Brendan Broadbent, please come up on stage and give him a warm welcome.
Let's not advertise Josh, that we know each other pretty well, okay?
Brendan, mate, you wear so many hats. You've done so much work in community in Western Sydney. Please tell us who's your mob, where you're from, what you're about.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to say Ngumbi Midjingal, which means hello friends in the Dharawal language. My name is Brendan Broadbent. I'm a proud Wadi Wadi Kumadichi man of the Dharawal people of South Coast. And I've got fellow sister over here, Rowena. So my family are the McLeods, Browns and Timbrys as well. So thank you, sis, for your welcome to the country. Beautiful. Always love to be welcomed on site on the country. It's fantastic. I was born on this country. I was born on this country, on Gadigal country, just up the road to Camperdown. Spent my first 20 odd so years living on here. Then I moved back out onto Darrell MacArthur country, where I had 2 boys. Met my partner. I'm a man of many hats. I'm a visual artist. I'm heavily involved with Indigenous football. So I got that right, didn't I, David? And Uncle Phil, I didn't say soccer, football. But also my main role is I've worked for local government for many years, but then I transitioned over to state government, where I work at the Botanical Gardens of Sydney. So that lovely garden across the harbour there, which a lot of people know it as Royal. I don't call it Royal, I just call it Sydney Gardens. We also are caretakers of the Sydney Gardens, Australian Botanical Gardens at Mount Annan, but also Mount Tomah up in the Blue Mountains as well. So we have large sites to look after. So my role there is advisor, Aboriginal advisor strategy and development. So my main role there is to pretty much drive our reconciliation action plan, which we just delivered our very first one last year. We're currently creating and doing our consultation with community and our RAP committee at the moment for our next Innovate RAP. I drive the engagement strategy. I pretty much work all across all directorates to make sure that all our directors and our CEO have contact with myself and ask questions. Anything cultural issues or any problems arise, I'm there to answer the questions. But just to work with them as well to increase their knowledge as well of how important country is and what we're trying to do through the gardens in regards to employment, procurement, all those things. And it's a great place, but also the cultural science that we're bringing in through all the stuff that we're doing for cultural burning. And there's just so much going on. So yeah, so that's me at the moment. I don't get to practice much art anymore because I've got a 5-year-old that likes to run in the studio and throw paint around. So it's very hard for me to do that at the moment. But like I said, I am also currently the manager of the Indigenous Ruse men's side, which I think I'm going to lose that title because they want me a bit higher in a strategic role, but I don't really want to give it up because I really like being at that ground level, getting to know, getting to connect with the players and getting to connect with the community. So yeah, so and like what Jossie said, we're out yesterday out at Orchard Hills. Does anyone know where Orchard Hills is? Along Northern Road. So you got Mulgoa and you got Orchard Hills. So it's the Army Defence site that we're out there. We've been out there for a couple of days, and as soon as we finish here, we're jetting straight out there to do more cultural burning.
So if anyone's got a helicopter,
yes,
get us out of this traffic.
That'd be quicker. That'd be great. So yeah. So yeah, like I said, many hats. Do a lot in the community.
Yeah, I think he's being very humble, very modest. There's a lot of truth-telling projects that Brendan's been a part of in Western Sydney, and potentially through education, which is the first part of this conversation, we can pull out the importance of those truth-telling projects. Yeah, a lot of time in community and with organisations or schools and different community groups just setting out on reconciliation, they often don't know the true history of place. They don't know about the things that have happened in their community and to the families that still live there. And that's a big gap in knowledge to overcome. And I think we all know in this room, whether you're doing mediation on legal issues or whatever it might be, by building our collective pool of understanding, it actually helps us to move forward, sitting on that even ground of acknowledging and understanding. And I think the work in education, right? A lot of you guys we all touch on education in schools and different groups at different levels. Mitch, you've been running some cultural awareness training out with your group. Bez directly in there with young people, and the Botanic Gardens, they're a place for education, right? People come there to learn. So I think I might open it up to the panel. What does the theme this year, now more than ever, what does that look like in the spaces of education that the three of you are in? Who wants to jump in first?
Yeah, I think Josh, one of the things that's really heartwarming for, I'll just give you guys a bit of a background. So in the Pembley Mounts Primary Health Network where I work, we're actually in our third reconciliation action plan, and we're moving on to a stretch RAP. And as part of that RAP, we've invited our workplace to come on board, on that journey. It's not just up to the blackfellas in the organisation to drive this stuff, it's up to the non-Aboriginal workers as well. And the stories that I get from the people coming home and how they've immersed themselves into culture, how the kids are now getting involved in culture. We run a whole bunch of events out in our region too, NAIDOC Cup, NAIDOC Jamison Park in the Penrith region. And, with NAIDOC Cup, it's like a sporting carnival to celebrate NAIDOC. And as part of that, the Aboriginal kids are asked to bring a non-Aboriginal friend along with them, because when I was a kid, NAIDOC events were just for the Aboriginal students, and I personally, I don't think that's what it's all about. I think it's about all of us celebrating culture. You live of this land, you are of this land. It's the culture of the land of which we live. And I think it's really important that we involve the non-Aboriginal kids as well as the Aboriginal kids in this, because you see it, they're learning language at schools now and the kids love it. They're learning dances, they're learning art and stuff, and the kids get immersed into that. And I think that education is such an important thing, and it starts with involving Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal kids together. So through my experience out in Western Sydney.
Yeah. Bez, you want to extend on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I totally agree with what you're saying, Mitch. I think our kids get it. I'm not like all kids get it. A couple of weeks ago, I taught a lesson about first contact, and it's looking at frontier wars. We were teaching about that in year 6. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I went to school, we didn't learn anything about Aboriginal people at all. And certainly nothing local. Like, I was on country living where I was from, and I felt so disconnected and so didn't know who I was. I'm from a community that's like on the same country, but an hour away, if that makes sense. So today, I think the children understand. I taught them a lesson about the Battle of Parramatta and how that went down. And we, like, obviously as a teacher, I have to be very mindful about being objective and that I'm not trying to because obviously I have my own beliefs about things, you know, like the way I really want to probably say it. But what I found from that lesson, and every time I've ever done that lesson, is that when we open up a discussion about, you know, whose land was it? Who's, like, you know, we talk about that, you know, the colony expanded, they had, you know, they were given parcels of land or whatnot. And then, you know, the local Aboriginal people were there and they had, you know, traditional land for tens of thousands of years. But every single child in that class, every time I do that lesson, says it's Aboriginal land, no matter what. And so I think now more than ever, it is important that we bring the grown-ups on the journey, because the children, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, we have a thing called Culture Club where children come at lunchtime, Indigenous, non-Indigenous. The boys play Dig. The Dig teacher is a local man from the Newcastle Awabakal community. You know, we do weaving. We've learnt to weave. And everyone wants to learn that. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, as long as I've followed cultural protocols around what's okay about that in being in a different area, they all want to learn. One thing that we are doing is we've created our own reconciliation barometer for our school based on the questions from the Australian barometer. And so I developed the questions based on that, but made them child friendly. And it shows that our children get it.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at our school compared to, and I didn't have the approval to show you guys the stats, I'm sorry. Hopefully I can at some point get that. But it shows that our children are miles ahead than the Australian community. Like, I'm talking 96% versus 30% in most of the questions. And so what I've now started to do is actually start surveying our parents and our teachers, because I think we can think where we're up to for reconciliation, but unless we actually ask the people that we're working with, including children, families, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and the wider community, how do we really know? So I think absolutely, I think now more than ever in education, we need to empower educators. I certainly think that the early childhood space needs to have more support. There's a new early years learning framework, version 2.0 it's called, which is embedded throughout with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, but there is very little support or funding to make that happen. So I think we need to educate and bring along our educators to have that understanding. I know, like, when we're talking about, sorry, I feel like I'm hogging this way too much.
No, you're right.
Keep going, you're doing good.
When we're talking about closing the gap targets, and there's a target of having 95% Aboriginal children in, I don't know what year it was, attending early childhood, but that is happening. That's one target that's on track. But my 4-year-old son was removed from preschool last year in his final year before school because they couldn't handle his behaviours. So we're talking about culturally safe early childhood services. But my 4-year-old son, he was allowed to go 1 day a week out of 5 from 9 till 3. And so you could imagine that's how I ended up with 4 jobs, because I had to work at night time and all these different things where that's not culturally safe. You know, there's support there. We need to empower educators to find that support, to use that support, and to build relationships with Aboriginal families. So, yeah, I think we've got to educate the grown-ups. That's what I see.
Following on from educating the grown-ups, I think here, yeah. following on from educating the grown-ups, there's a few things that come to mind, Brendan, from your space. Just the nature of the Botanic Gardens for educating people, not just in the local community, but people from overseas as well. But also your work around the truth-telling projects of the massacres that have happened in Western Sydney. And you did a bit of a project with my partner a while ago.
Oh yeah, it was many moons ago. That was with Jasmine. So, the topic for this year for National more now than ever, Aboriginal people now more than ever is what we live and breathe every day. So for us, it's our job, it's our responsibility to do it every day as we live and breathe, growing up as children, listening to our elders, passing in that knowledge. So we're advocating for that every day. But there are non-Aboriginal people that actually do come along with us for the journey as well. And they want to know the knowledge as well, and they want to share. Uncle Lady Timbri, I don't know if anyone knows, he was known as the Boomerang Man in La Perez, then he moved down to Jarvis Bay, a bit further down Jarvis Bay. And he always said something to me when I was younger. He said, Brendan, in life, you share, and you give. And those words just stayed with me and imprinted in my brain. And that's what I do with Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. Come along for the journey with us. In regards to the truth-telling, especially about our massacres, I'm a big advocate of it, is that every year we meet down at the Cataract Dam to pay our respects and remember the Dharawal people who lost their lives in the Upper Massacre in 1816. It was the first ordered massacre by Lachlan Macquarie, and it was conducted by soldiers as well. We'll never know the true numbers of how many people died, but history says about 14, but it was a lot more than that. And it's a pretty dark history. Women and children were pushed off the cliffs down there, and men were actually decapitated and hung up in the trees. It's pretty serious stuff. And then mobs and surrounding areas pretty much left the area, and the survivors took refuge on MacArthur's farm, but then they were moved to the Parramatta Native Institute as well. So that, to me, is I would like to see the massacres from just not the Upper Massacre, but all massacres to be acknowledged like we do when we celebrate our Anzacs. Because a lot of people don't know that we fought a war in this country for 100 years before we went to any world wars. And it just wasn't Aboriginal people who lost their life. It was innocent non-Aboriginal women and children as well. So we need to acknowledge that. We need more truth-telling around that, more recognition and memorials around it. And we don't really see, like a lot of it. Rachel Perkins did the three series of the Australian Wars, and I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I would say if you guys haven't watched that series, go home, put it on your put it on your SBS demand and ticket to watch it, and you'll actually find out in the knowledge of how nasty and how nasty things were for our people, not just in certain areas, and how they were threatening Aboriginal people, hunting their own people, because if they didn't hunt their own people, they were thrown in jail or they were killed. They had set up Aboriginal parties going out and hunting their own people with soldiers as well. A lot of stuff revealed through that documentary, a lot of knowledge that we've grown up to learn, we knew through watching that the stories of what our old people told us were true. And our old people pass on that knowledge so we can pass it on to the next generation as well. So I'm a big advocate of making sure that in the future, that is a talking point and a conversation of having the massacres acknowledged exactly how we acknowledged our Anzac and our diggers that also come back from world wars.
What do you see, panel, as I guess the power of those truth-telling projects and the power of that education? What are the outcomes that you see once you go through those processes and journeys?
I guess that they actually make change.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're after, that we're trying to affect change, positive change for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And those truth-telling processes do work to change those attitudes. And I think part of this requires, as educators, we're talking about cultural responsiveness. And there's a really great resource called the Cultural Responsive Continuum by the Australian Teaching ATSL, it's called AITSL. but it asks us to like examine, like there's a continuum you can look at, you know, and this will be relevant for anyone in any organisation if you guys want to have a look, but it starts off at cultural destructiveness, that it talks about cultural blindness, that we're all the same and I don't see colour, then it talks about cultural awareness, and then it talks about something else. I can't remember what the rest of the, anyway, it gets the end goal is around cultural responsiveness, which is about, you know, responding to the needs of the people that you're working with and into like incorporating culture or whatever it might be, but helping those children or those people that you're working with to feel culturally safe. And I think this truth-telling process requires us to have a deep dive into what we thought we knew about our story, about our country's story, and about our place in it.
Yeah.
And I think then it becomes this whole, like, once you've had that light bulb moment, you can't turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's about, you know, how can we continue to educate people about this so that we can recognize the true history and the awful things that have happened in the past 200 and
we held our annual Sorry Day event up at the Gardens that we hold every year. Now, that event started, so that's a Sorry Day event where we work with DCJ, a lot of our NGOs and a lot of our thorough Aboriginal Corporation, a lot of our community. That event started I was actually working for Campbelltown City Council then. We actually started, and I was actually on the first committee, that event started with only 20 people in 2017. We were building, then COVID hit, but now we had roughly over 500 people there on last Friday to celebrate. Kids from high schools, staff from all over, DCJ staff. So we could probably get more there, but we're tied due to funding of what we can do and put on. But we only advertise that to the Dharawal Macarthur community. So it's just a Southwest community. If we advertised it to the whole of the community, we'll probably get thousands. But due to funding, we can't provide all the resources and things like that. So to start that with 24 people and how it's grown and how it's going to grow into the future is fantastic. And we have our own staff for our directors come, our CEO comes, all of our high-level managers come, and they actually love the day. And they come, they connect with the community. They know a lot of the community out there because they've had these conversations, they've built the relationships, but also working on different programs that we work for the Gardens as well. And then last year, with our RAP committee, we had a bit of a conversation about what we want to do for National Reconciliation Week. So to me, National Reconciliation, it's not about doing activities, weaving and all that. It's about listening, learning and taking everything in. So I said, what do we do this? I said, let's reach out to Kinchilla Boys Home. So I reached out to Kinchilla Boys Home, spoke with Tiffany, who's the CEO there, and I said, I'd love for a few of the elders to come down and talk to our staff for Reconciliation Week. Well, we put it out and we had over 100 staff come. And I'm telling you, when they got up, especially Uncle Bobby Young, who got up and tells his story beautifully, and with all respect, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Yeah. I had directors, I had the CEO crying.
Yeah.
They're listening. This is powerful stuff. Listening. We grew up hearing these stories, but people who don't know these stories and don't know the history, hearing these, it's powerful stuff. And now they've gone up and after the event, they've spoken to them and they've made that connection. We had them out again for the Sorry Day event. We brought out the Kinchilla Boys Home bus, which we brought them out and the community loved it. This year we've actually got Kuta girls coming out this year. So we had the men last year, now we had the women coming out. And it's all about that listening and learning and taking everything on. So
powerful stuff.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. I'm mindful of time and I just wanted to, we've got a couple minutes left before we open up to the floor and take some questions from the floor. But just want to closing kind of statements from you guys. What's the call to action now more than ever? What does that mean for you in the health space? What's the call to action for people dialing in, listening today?
Yeah, look, Josh, I'm a really big believer in, you guys have all come here today because this means something to you. You don't have to be here. And my take-home message is that never underestimate your ability as an individual. You represent your organisations here today and you might be doing some amazing work through your reconciliation action plans and stuff like that. But it clearly means something for you guys to be here today. Now, never underestimate what you can do as an individual in your sphere of influence in making this change. So I'd personally just like to thank you guys for listening today and taking it all on board. It's funny, actually, you can see all the eyes when you're up here and you see all the nodding. So it means something to you guys to listen to us at the forefront of this. And, you know, I did bring some data and stuff, which I won't go through today, but the health of our mob, because I'm representing health today, we are just so overrepresented in every negative category when it comes to health. And, you know, change needs to be done in this country, and you guys can be that change. We have a lot of things that run in each of the communities that you guys can support and get behind, whether that's financial, just actually attending events, supporting events. You know, in our community, we run an Aboriginal men's group, and that's all self-funded, you know, like, so little things like that, supporting some of the things that are local in your community, going out to your community, finding out what the need is and seeing how you can help will make a big difference.
Bez?
So I guess from an education point of view, talking to your children and grandchildren about what they're learning at school or early years education. If your child or grandchild goes to an education service, joining their reconciliation action plan through Narragunawali, which is amazing. I think that's an important step that a lot of schools and early learning services are taking, and it's a formal commitment to reconciliation. So joining up as a working party member would be great for that. And I think just helping us to advocate, we need more funding. And I don't know what the issue is with that. Been trying to do a bit of research, but I can tell you at our school, we have pretty much zero funding for Aboriginal education. I received a $10,000 grant last year, but that was just me applying for a grant.
Mm-hmm.
So where is the money? I don't know. There needs to be more transparency around where the funding is going, because it's not really going to us on the ground. I'm probably going to get fired, but hey, it has to be said. It's about truth telling. I'm willing to take one for the team.
Thanks, Bez. Bez is staunch, I told you. Where's your homework? Where's the funding? Thanks, Bez.
Oh.
Brendan, yeah. Any parting words, call to action? What can people take away today?
Well, like what Mitch said, you can see people around nodding when you speak, that you're here for a reason. And you're here because you want to contribute. What I say to all people, if people are just in it for the ticker block and a tokenistic about it, don't waste your time, because Aboriginal people can see through that. You know what I mean? As you come along with the journey with us, we want you to come along the journey and share with us. It's all about the journey. Doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. And that's what I say to people. Come along with us with the journey, learn from us. And also, one thing I will say, I would love to see all the red tape process tried to be, especially around land management and cultural burning, in regards to getting on Crown lands and what we need to go through because certain times of year we miss our gaps to get onto country, to look after country the way, and then due to, processes and protocols and whatnot, I'd love to see a lot of the red tape cut. That's what I like to see, because make it easier for us to do what we need to do, but also funding in this space as well.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of work going on with RFS at the moment. We are working closely with RFS, and they're changing their mindset into the way they come along with the journey and the way that they look at their backburning practices as well. So doing it how we do it in a mosaic pattern, not in a 100-metre line with a drip torch where you're damaging country and bulldozing quarantine lines. So you're just doing more damage than good. So I think come along with us with the journey. Yeah. Come for the ride with us and put some trust in us, because we have a rich culture. We've got tens of thousands of years of knowledge here. It's embedded in our DNA, and a lot of us, it's embedded. Like I said, it's embedded in us. And all we need is that opportunity and that chance to show you what we can do.
Thanks, mate. All right. Do we have time for some questions from the floor? I think we are running a bit tight, but have we got people live streaming in? They got some questions they want to ask? Or Uncle Phil? Yeah. Uncle Phil? Yeah.
Crusader at its best. I just want to say open to the floor here to people is that I was born before the 67 referendum. And I work in a government agency. Why do we, as Aboriginal people, have to try 3 or 4 times harder to make it? Why? Tell why people are non-Aboriginal directors, executive, what do you want to call them these days? Throw away your policy books and worry about your relationship. That's your start. Full stop. No. Oh, no, I can't live on the live stream. Oh, this one.
on the live stream.
Oh, God, you don't know what to do. Everybody loves somebody sometime. Just getting back to it, folks. You won't get a job in Hollywood, that's for sure. Getting back to it, there is that because I work in government and I tell people, and I do a lot of guest speaking, is that why do Aboriginal people have to try 3 or 4 times harder? It's been going on for years. I tell directors, I tell government people, forget about your policy books, worry about your relationships. That's your start for reconciliation. We're guided by the referendum. If I go back, and I did some guest speaking there, I tell people, listen, if you can accept 230 years of a Westminster system, then why can't you accept 65,000 years of history? It's pretty simple stuff. We make it hard, system makes it hard. I tell people the system is detrimental to Aboriginal people's lives. We go back to the Kinchla Boys day. We go back to education. When I was at school, all I heard about was Columbus, Magellan and Cook. Today it's a little bit different. But why are we continuing and coming back to round table discussions and going, mate, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. No. Start thinking again. Start thinking twice about how we speak and how we communicate with Aboriginal people. Not too far away from me, in 1946, my grandfather came back from the war, was on the back of a truck holding a placard, burn our welfare board. He's now in the war memorial down as we go back colonial wars. And I'm a Gumbaynggirr and Thungutty man. It really, really sickens me, folks, that Aboriginal people have to try and try and try, even in sport. You got to try, and I come through a system where I had to try harder than the white kid. But I was never deterred on, because I believe you pass failure on the way to success. And my failure was that the white teachers didn't understand me. Because my culture where I was born, it wasn't about mathematics, Magellan and Columbus and that. But if I can just say this here, your reconciliation, throw away your policy books and worry about the relationships. That's probably your best start. If I go back to the minister there, let's sit around the table. And that's a good start, but get rid of the books. Because it means nothing to Aboriginal people. It never has meant anything to Aboriginal people. It's talking. And if we can go back to that for a start, I mean, we're going forward. But reconciliation, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful stuff. You four speakers up there, wonderful people. I have a little bit to do with Brendan, and I can honestly tell you that he's a guy who wears many hats, and he's a guy who promotes reconciliation everywhere. And he's been on a journey with me, and I really want to acknowledge him sitting. I'm very, very proud of Brendan to be sitting up there. But ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very, very much. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Arthur.
Thank you, Uncle Phil. And thank you so much to our deadly panel. I wish we had another half an hour. I feel like taking a poll in the room to say who can stay longer, but I've been told I have to wrap things up. So we're going to have you all back and we'll do a lunchtime maybe, and I won't do so much emceeing and you can talk more. So that concludes our Reconciliation New South Wales 2024 breakfast. A sincere thanks to Gilbert and Tobin for your hospitality, your commitment and your support to Reconciliation New South Wales. A sincere thanks to Reconciliation New South Wales staff, to our board, and to everyone in this room and everyone online for sharing this journey with us. It is the journey, no matter where you are on that spectrum. And we are here to walk alongside you. We're committed, we're passionate, and we are going to keep on going. If you know any of us, we are dogged and we are determined, and we're here for you. So we hope you enjoyed today. Please mark your diaries for next year's. I can't believe this is even in my notes because I'm not even looking at next year, but if you'd like to mark your diaries, We can announce it will be hosted by Hall and Wilcox on Wednesday, the 28th of May, 2025. Please join us. So thank you. We are going to close now with remember the cards for actions, please. And I will be checking tables. I will be, I promise. Please make connections, form friendships, get an ally group going and work with us to grow that network, keep up the momentum for change. We're going to close with an awesome performance, and if anyone wants to see my a cappella group doing the same thing, it's on my phone. I'll show you later. So over to the video, and please stick around. Over and out.
Different lives in different places. It doesn't matter what your name is. We're gonna have lots of changes.
Are you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Who understands these family plans? Black fella, white fella, every fella, any fella. It doesn't matter what your color, as long as you are true fella. All the people of different races, with different lives, in different places.